The purpose of this video is to teach you all about in-text citations, sometimes also called parenthetical citations. The basic idea is that in your writing, when you reference someone else's work, you need a parenthetical or an in-text citation to give them due credit. So there are really two situations in which you would need in-text citations. The first is when you quote someone directly. Take a look at this sentence that's quoting Emma by Jane Austen. It uses the quote from the novel, "Very little to distress or vex her." It's put in quotations, and at the end they have that citation because it's quoting the text directly. Another instance in which you would need in-text citations is when you are paraphrasing from another source. Take a look at another example from Emma. Mr. Knightley makes it clear in a conversation that he disapproves of Emma's closeness with Harriet. So this is referring to a specific scene where Mr. Knightley is expressing this disapproval, but there's no quote. Still, because it's referring to a specific instance and it's paraphrasing from that instance, we cite it with the page number here. So to review, the two situations where you need in-text citations are when you're quoting someone or when you're paraphrasing someone. Here are some things that you don't need to cite, even though it might seem like you need to. You never need to cite your own ideas, thoughts, or research. You don't need to cite facts that are found in many sources. So, for example, a fact like the Declaration of Independence was adopted in 1776. That's what's known as common knowledge, right? It's found in multiple sources, so you don't need to cite that fact. 3, things that are easily observed. So, for example, students often experience stress or something along those lines that's easily observed. You don't have to cite. The last thing you don't have to cite are common sayings like the early bird gets the worm, right? Those are things you don't have to cite. Let's now talk about actually how to cite. So if your essay is only on one novel, so let's say you're asked to write a paper on Emma and no other novel, you do not need to include the author's last name because it's understood that you're quoting just this one novel all the way through. Let's take a look at how this was done. So what we have here is the quotation mark, a space, and then the parenthetical citation, followed by the punctuation. So notice the punctuation is not going here, it's going here at the end. So what if the text that you're quoting has a question mark at the end of it? Well, you keep the question mark or the exclamation point in the quote. You have the quotation marks following it, you have a space, you have the page number, and you still end in a period. This again goes for question marks or exclamation points. Notice in this essay, we would assume that it was only about To Kill a Mockingbird, which is why we don't have the author's name in the parenthetical citation. All right, here are some examples of how not to cite. In the first example, we have the student or author has written out the word page. Don't do that. Don't write out PG like this writer has done. Don't write P. You just need the page number. In the last one, they've just put the page number, but they've put the period in the wrong place. It's in the quotation marks instead of going where it belongs after the parenthetical. Okay, well, what if you're writing a paper on poems? Let's say this essay is just one poem. You're not talking about any other poems or poems by any other poets. Well, you just use the line number instead of the page number. So here we have the line number within parentheses with the period at the end. Okay, well, what about plays written in verse? These are plays like anything by Shakespeare, right? They're written in poetry is a way to think about it. So what you do is you put the act first, then a period, then the scene, then the line number. And notice this would be if you were only writing about the play Hamlet, not about any other plays or plays by any other authors. For plays not written in verse, you would just cite them like you would any other novel. So now let's talk about if you're comparing texts or writing about multiple texts. All you have to do is include the author's last name. So if you look here, I have the same punctuation at the end. I still have the space here and everything. I just have added that last name before the page number. Again, you only need this if you're writing about multiple texts or different authors. There are a lot more intricacies and different rules for how to cite different authors, but I'm going to let Eliza Gellis from the Purdue University Online Writing Lab show you the different ways this can happen.
For a corporate author, just use the name of the organization, followed by the page number, if there is one. As we can see here, we summarize information from an EPA report, listing both the EPA and the page we're paraphrasing. For two authors, list both last names in the order they appear in the source, like we do here with Best and Marcus. For three or more authors, list the first author's last name and replace the other author's last names with et al. Just like the example, only the first author's name is shown. If you're using more than one work by an author, use a shortened version of the title in your citation to specify which work you're citing. Looking to the example below, here we use Visual Studies as a shortened title to let our readers know specifically which of Elkins's pieces we're quoting. And if there is no author, just use a shortened version of the title. Again, here we use Impact of Global Warming to help our readers identify which piece we're quoting, since this article has no author. With online sources, you're unlikely to have a page number, so just the author's name or the title is fine. For example, since the Purdue OWL webpage doesn't have numbered pages, we just list the authors who worked on the specific piece we're quoting. Still confused or unsure? When in doubt, just remember that your in-text citation should match up with the first thing listed for that source in your work cited. Lastly, there's signaling in text. That's when you incorporate all or part of your parenthetical citation into the sentence itself. Thinking through this, we can see from the example below that we've included the author's name, part of our citation, into the sentence itself. This is often the most elegant way to incorporate a quote and use an in-text citation. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out Purdue OWL's other resources on our website. This vidcast uses MLA 8th edition. For more information, visit our page on MLA 8.